And this is one of the exciting things I get to do in my career today. So this is a group of students who studied visitor attraction and resort management, and they got to graduate on a roller coaster a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do it last year. And I get to go around the Oblivion 6 times on the trot without any stops. I used to like the Oblivion. I went off it a little bit after 6 times without a stop. So that's sort of some of the exciting stuff that I get to do along the way, as well as some really difficult and challenging stuff, I guess. But here's where it all began. Here's little me. This was within the first couple of weeks of me starting school. I was 4 years old there, nearly 5 years old. Did I know what career I wanted to follow then? No, I had no idea. Did I know what career I wanted to follow when I started high school? I went to a local high school that's not too far away from here. No, not a clue. No idea what I wanted to. I'm sure there were days when I thought I'd like to be a nurse or I'd like to be an air hostess. And did I think I would be an associate dean in a university? I had no clue what a university was at that age. So when do people make their mind up, and how does that happen for you as you go through your life? Now, I made this slide thinking that you might be able to engage with the slide, and I'm aware now that you can't. But just can I ask a question and type away in the chat box? Do you know what career you want? Have you got a really strong idea for what you want to do? Yeah, great. So we got some that have. Oh, wow. What a focus group. Oh, I've got somebody who hasn't. Kind of. That's pretty much like it, Dammy. Kind of. A lot of people are sort of wavering there. Let me just move my notes on so I can see my next lot of notes. And I wonder whether what you think now will remain the same or whether it will change. And I wonder if different things will happen. So look where we are now, teaching in an online classroom, very different environments, make you think differently about how we might want to work in the future. And jobs of the future are changing so dramatically that change means that we change our minds as well. And probably most importantly at the moment is knowing what you don't want to do. I never wanted to work with animals. I certainly didn't want to work in a circus, putting my head inside the mouth of a lion. It's equally important and it's a good start. So if you don't know yet what you want to do, think about what you definitely don't want to do, because that's probably important. So let me talk you through my career journey. So as I said to you, I went to a local high school. I did GCSEs and then went on to do A levels there. And I studied A levels in chemistry, biology, maths, and general studies. So I got through, completed my A levels, but I didn't quite get enough points to get in to the university I planned to go to. And so I went through clearing. Do you know what clearing is? Yeah, okay. So it's where somebody, most of you seem to know, where somebody doesn't get the grades they thought they were going to get. And so they can go into a system whereby they'll see what universities are offering them different choices, different courses at lower entry points. So I went to uni through clearing, and I went to a university in London. And that was probably a bad choice for me. And we're all different and everybody wants different things. Some people want to get away from home and move completely away and be completely independent. Some people, my 2 kids included, wanted the comfort of being at home when they went away to university. If you're planning to go to university, because obviously you won't all necessarily want to do so, but going to London wasn't right for me and it didn't work. And I came back again. So I really didn't follow the traditional route. I didn't get that standard undergraduate degree at 18 and graduate at 21. Instead, I went off and got a job working in a bank. And I worked in a bank very locally. I stayed around my friends, my family, my boyfriend. All of those sorts of things really matter to me. And everybody's different. Everybody needs different things. And from the bank, I kept sort of really looking around to see what else there was that I might be interested in. And there was a job going at what was called ICI, and it's now AstraZeneca, hence the needle there, because obviously AstraZeneca have been really famous just recently. What have they done? What do you know the name AstraZeneca for doing recently? Absolutely. Yeah, they're one of the ones that came up with a vaccination for COVID. So I worked there and I worked on, I was always looking, going from a bank, numbers and sort of working things out, trying to find out things. So I worked in a department that actually, when people went in for clinical trials, so to test new vaccines, for example, I used to take in all the results that the doctor sent to us, and I'd do some statistical analysis of those results to see what they were telling us, basically. So it was doing analysis, and I really enjoyed that. But that stopped when I had my family. So I had two children. I went back part time after my first child, but when I had the second one, within 2 years of one another, it was just too expensive to send them both to childcare and to work part time. So I had a couple of years at home, and then when my eldest one went to school, I went back again to work and I managed to get a job again in a bank. So whilst I was there, so I was doing just your general counter work, taking customers at the counter, and dealing with cash and all those sorts of things. And whilst I was there, an opportunity came up to work in what they called a marketing team. Now, what it really was working sort of slightly later hours on a part-time basis and doing some Saturday mornings as well, and phoning up people who had a loan maybe for a car or had a mortgage for their house, or had some form of borrowing, and just to say, oh, your loan's nearly finished. Do you want to come in and meet us so that we can talk about what else we could offer you, or whether we can refinance your credit card to make it slightly cheaper for you, and all those sorts of things. So it's reaching out to customers who were at the point of completing some sort of lending to see if we could drag them in again to borrow some more, essentially. And that was where my interest in marketing really started. So just looking back at that, we started with somebody who had A levels in chemistry, biology, maths, and general studies. Not great grades, I have to say, but I've got them, still got those 4 A levels. And I ended up working in marketing in a bank. Really strange how we change, isn't it? And so from there, I went on to work in a number of local companies, all in South Cheshire, in marketing roles. So I worked for a market research company, and that was a great job because I got to go all around the world to conferences where I would do interviews with doctors or help them people to fill in questionnaires and things as part of their market research. So loved that. I moved into several marketing management roles, as I said, within local companies. I ended up as a global marketing manager for a company in Sandbach in Cheshire. And let me just move on to the next bit. All the time, whilst all this was happening and my kids were growing up, I was still studying. So I decided marketing was where I wanted to be. And I thought, if I'm going to remain within some sort of marketing role and I want to progress, then really I should look at the professional qualifications. So I did. I studied all my marketing exams, and I actually studied them right through to a postgraduate level. So I got a postgraduate level qualification in marketing. I then went on to evidence my practice by demonstrating CPD hours, continuous professional development, and I was awarded chartered marketer status. And that was really useful because then came a point when I decided I was going to work for myself. And actually, thinking about careers and thinking where you may end up, anybody got any sort of ambitions to run their own business or to be part of a small family business? Anyone thought about that? Any entrepreneurs out there? Are you all still here? You're very quiet. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I decided I was going to run my own business. I'd always wanted to do it. The kids were growing up even more. I'd got a little bit more time on my hands. I was fully qualified. So I set up my own business and I worked as a marketing consultant, and I had to work really hard at marketing myself then. I had to set up a little website. I had to sort of go to lots of business meetings and meet Chamber of Commerce and things like that just to engage with people. And as part of that, I really had to hone my communication skills and really had to work harder at how to sort of persuade people, how to be persuasive. Um, and actually, whilst I was doing that and I was building up that business nicely and I was working away at home and getting quite a nice income from it, somebody said to me, "Are you interested in coming and teaching our professional marketing qualifications at a night school class 1 day a week?" So I got a job as well as running my own business every Thursday night. I taught for 3 hours at a college university actually, in Manchester, where they ran the professional marketing courses. And really, that's when my move into higher education began, because from working 3 hours on a Thursday night teaching people who worked in the daytime and then came to a night school class, they then asked me, would I go on to work for them 2 or 3 days a week? And I did. And I combined that with running my own business. And then they offered me full-time work. And I thought, this is the point at which I think, do I stay running my own business, which is quite nice, but it's as big as I can really deal with on my own. I either grow the business and employ people, along with that brings all sorts of other complications, or I consider going back into work. And also, there were lots of advantages into going into a full-time job. Things like sick pay, things like holiday pay, things like pensions, which, suddenly I was at the age where I was thinking, what am I going to do when I retire? And what really clinched that decision for me to take a full-time job again, having really enjoyed working for myself, was the fact that my husband also has his own business. And there would come a point every winter where we'd both want to take a couple of weeks holiday, maybe. And for us both to take 2 weeks holiday, that means he was earning nothing for 2 weeks and I was earning nothing for 2 weeks. And we were spending money for 2 weeks. And business can be quiet around the Christmas period as well. And I just thought, how lovely must it be for somebody to be paying your wages, whether you're working or not, because you're taking your paid holiday. What was also really tempting to me, and I think you might be sensing a bit of a theme here, was that along with this job offer came the offer to do a master's in professional marketing. And, I've always loved studying. I always wanted to go to that next level. And a lot of students might think, gosh, when I finish my GCSEs or whatever qualification it may be, A levels or BTEC, I never want to study again. But actually, it's amazing how many mature students we see at the university at the moment. A lot of people are thinking, actually, I quite miss it a few years down the line. I've always loved it. So I came back to studying. I got my teaching qualification. I got my master's in professional marketing. And then 8 years ago, a job came up at Staffordshire University. So at the time, prior to that, I was working in Manchester. And I lived in South Cheshire, so I was jumping on a train to Manchester. And what's the difference to jump on a train to Stoke? So I took the job at Staffordshire University, and the rest is history, really. I moved from being a lecturer to a senior lecturer to a head of department to an associate dean, which is the position that I've talked to you about now. So what next, really? Because a career never stops. And, this was one of my proudest day. That was the day that I graduated from with my Chartered Institute of Marketing postgraduate qualification. And that's my dad with me there. And I was the youngest of 4 children. And all my older sisters and brother had gone to university straight from school, graduated at 21. So it was really strange for my mum and dad. I didn't tell them where I was taking them that day. They had no idea I'd been studying, and I just took them to my graduation, which was actually in Birmingham. And I do often ask myself, would I do it the way that I did it again? So how old are you guys? Tell me how old you all are. Okay, so you are at that point looking at your ages where you have these decisions to make. What do I do? Do I go to work? Should I go to university? What are the options for me? Um, and I reflect on that, and I think there are many times when I think I wouldn't change anything. I'm glad I did it the way that I did. My life's been just fine. And there are other times when I think, now that I'm working in a university, I can see what I missed as a young person, and maybe I ought to do that. So let me have a look at some of the things that potentially I missed out on. Um, it's not all about study when you go to university. It's very much about making those friendships, and people who leave us on graduation day, they say they've made friends for life, and they do keep those friendships for life, and they do keep in touch with me. So that group of students you can see at the bottom there, Tiffany down on the right, she got married recently and sent me all her wedding photos and things like that. So, we do keep in touch with students, but they certainly keep in touch with one another. And there are all sorts of things that we do. Up on the top right, that was a trip to Berlin, taking students to Berlin there, and I've done that a couple of times. Um, for some people, going to university, as I said earlier, is about that getting away from home, finding your independence. And some of you may well be looking at university and going somewhere that gives you that breakaway. And that's a great thing for some people. For others, it is very much about staying at home, maybe helping support mum and dad and a family business, and also progressing with your career, your education, whilst maybe having a part-time job or something like that, or family commitments. We have people who have young children who come along to university. So the balance of those decisions is very much an individual choice. It's very much up to you what you do. But coming to university, there's a society for pretty much everything you could think of. So lots of fun things that you can do, sharing hobbies as well as studying. And having worked at university for over a decade now, there are times when I definitely look back and think, well, I wish I had gone to university straight from school. But equally, I've got lots of work experience. I've got lots of life experience that brings a lot to my role. Actually, being able to talk about my work experience has been very useful in my role. And I think what I would want you to take away from today's session more than anything else is the fact that education never ends and studying never ends. And you can study at any age. And as I said to you, we do have a lot of mature students now. And also, I'm still studying. So in my mid-50s, I'm now doing my doctorate. I'm 3 years into my doctorate, which I'm doing part-time. It takes about 5 years to do a part-time doctorate. Hopefully I'll have it by the time I'm 60. So university or whatever qualifications you want to do and want to gain over the years, you can do along the way. The other thing to consider, I think, in your position is apprenticeships, because obviously that's a way to earn as you learn. That's a way to enjoy university life by going to university one day a week or another apprenticeship provider. It doesn't necessarily have to be a university. And whilst also earning and starting a job. And there are more and more apprenticeships available. So that's definitely something that I would choose to do. So I guess what I wanted to ask you now, and why I put this slide up is how do you feel? There are lots of advantages of going to university. There are lots of advantages of going straight out to work. I was wondering where you guys were sitting with that. So pop a comment in the box. Do you think it's good to go? Why is it good to go? Do you think it's better to work? Why do you think it's better to work? How's everyone feeling? Better to go? Yeah. Some people think it's better to work. I think it's going to be about a 50-50 split. I think you've got a good point there, Chelsea. Yes, it does help when you're looking at the level of job that you can apply to. But then we've got Meredith as well. You can get a taste of life when you're working and maybe go to university a bit later on. So I think there's a really even split from the comments that you're putting there. And as I said before, it's only an individual choice. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Somebody's put it's only realistic use of time and money if you know you can make use of the training. It is, but also it's 3 or 4 years of your life that you can really enjoy yourself, really hone your skills in communication, in presentation, in timekeeping, all of those different things, and just have a good time. Now, Jasmine's made a really good point. It depends on the job. So some jobs you have to have a degree. So that's a consideration. If you're thinking of going into a particular career where you have to have a degree, then take that consideration in mind. George makes the point employers will value work experience over uni. Employers really do value work experience. That's a very valid point. And I think that's a reason why a lot of our courses have, well, all of our courses have options for placement years now, and they have work experience built in. And I just think having that balance of a degree and work experience is probably different than just working. But who am I to say that? I did all the work beforehand, didn't I? So, yeah, lots of different options there, and I think it's really interesting to see where you sit on that one. So it's good to see that everybody's thinking about it anyway. Some of the things in my role now, so going back to thinking about my career, what have I been able to do? And I love traveling, and it's nearly killed me this past 12 months. I've missed several trips that I had planned because of the situation, but gosh, there are bigger things to think about, aren't there? But in my time at Staffordshire University, I've travelled to Finland. You can see that frozen lake there. That was on a trip to go and see an amazing university in Finland called Tamk University. If ever you get an opportunity to go there. I've been to Sri Lanka more than once because we have students out there. We have a university out in Sri Lanka that delivers our courses. So I've been out there to graduation ceremonies and to validation events where we look at how they're delivering our courses and make sure that it's equitable with our UK students. I've been on study trips abroad to Berlin. I showed you a picture of us all on the plane off to Berlin. More than once I've been to Berlin with students. So, those are all the really nice things about a career in a university if you choose that you want to go on to education of some sort. I suppose all the rewarding parts of the job, probably the most rewarding part of the job for me is actually seeing how I've transformed lives or how the university's transformed lives, and seeing people who I remember coming into classes at 18, 19, in the 20s maybe, but just looking really anxious and not sure whether this was right for them, and seeing them confidently cross that platform when they get their degree is really rewarding. And I think on that note, I would say whatever career you choose, it has to be rewarding. Make it something that really gives you something. You should all be thinking of doing something that you love, that you want to do, that gives something back to you as well. And my job certainly does that for me. And I really wanted to leave you with just some tips, really. And these are my tips. They won't be necessarily what your teachers will tell you, but this is how I look at it. And I always think, never give up. You might not choose to do the right thing at 18 or when you leave the sixth form college, but don't let it stop you. I made the wrong choice. I went to a university far away. It wasn't right for me. It hasn't stopped. Never give up on learning. I'm sure you've heard of the phrase lifelong learning. It's so accessible. We see more and more mature students now, people who thought that university wasn't right for them at 18. I'll give you an example, actually. My son, who's 31 now, he left school with a handful of GCSEs. He should have done much, much better, but he was busy doing other things and enjoying himself. And he went off to college and he got his HND, and he got a job working for an aerospace company locally. He did really well. He got onto an apprenticeship, and then youth and lack of experience and maybe a little bit of arrogance led him one day to think, I don't want to do this job anymore, and he left it. And he spent a bit of time doing nothing. And then he spent a bit of time trying to get another job, and he picked up several jobs. They were none of them particularly well paid. None of them had much of a future, and none of them gave him any job satisfaction. And he worked those jobs for a few years, and then he got to his mid-20s, and he came to me one day and said, I think I'm going to go to university. I'm going to get a degree. And I thought, oh, brilliant. I think that's a great choice for you. I knew that he had the capability of getting a degree. And so he came to Staffordshire. No, that was his choice, not mine. But he wanted to do games design because he's always loved playing on his computer games and everything. And I remember telling my parents, who are now in their 80s, and I said, oh, he's going to go to uni and he's going to do games design. And it was like, oh my God, how's that ever going to get him a job? And my dad's a teacher and my mum was a teacher. So they're very, pure academics. You have to study maths or science or English, and games design can't possibly get you any work. And roll on forward 3 years, and my son graduated with a first, and he was top in his class. He got an award for being the top student. He walked straight into a game with Sega in Leamington Spa, and he started making Sonic games. And I remember him as a 3-year-old playing on a Mega Drive on Sonic the Hedgehog games, and now he was making those games. So that was amazing. He worked for that company for 2 years, and then he managed to get a job much more local in Wilmslow. He works for a company called Playdemic, and they're part of the Warner Brothers group, and he now makes all the handheld games for Lego. So there's somebody who had choices, chose not to go to university at 18, had a little bit of time in the working world, found, as one of you said earlier, that they didn't have the same opportunities for jobs if you hadn't got a degree. So he came, he did a degree, he loved it. He absolutely loved doing his degree. And probably for some people, you do need to be a bit older to actually appreciate it. And then, he did well at it. And so the doors opened for him. And despite what people might think about gaming and computer games, he's got a job for life and he earns really good money. So it all worked out for him. So, yeah, never give up. Keep your options open. That's my second tip. I would say don't be pigeonholed into one subject area. Keep your options as broad as possible, because what you're thinking today may change. And I would also say study a subject that you enjoy, because if you enjoy it, you'll be successful at it. And I love marketing. And so I studied it and I enjoyed my studies, and I still enjoy studying it. And it changes all the time. Digital marketing certainly does. So I still have to study it. I would also say take every opportunity that's offered. And somebody mentioned work experience and the importance of that. And it really is, whether it's voluntary work, whether it's an opportunity to study, let's say, a small qualification, certification, whether it's an opportunity to present something that you've done to people, all of those things, attending a mock interview, that's a great opportunity. If you're thinking you're going straight into the working world, attend some mock interviews and get some feedback from your careers support in the college. And all these things contribute to your personal development, your CV, and the impression that you're going to make upon people when you apply for jobs. I would also say those transferable skills are really, really important. So hone those skills and use them. And I've had so many students come to me and say, and I say, and do you work as well as study? Well, I just work in McDonald's. Well, there's no such thing as just working in McDonald's in my head, because to work in McDonald's, you have to be part of a team. So you have to learn teamwork. You have to be in work on time. So you have to learn time management. You have to learn customer service skills. All of those things, and juggling work and study, and all of those things. It's never just a job. Any job that might not be highly paid, it might not be a career. It's just a job to get you money at the moment. But it's teaching you those transferable skills that are so important and that will make a difference when you do get to the point of your career choice. And then the last one, keep on learning. Learning is so available to you, and you might think now, when you leave college, you're never going to learn again because you're sick of it. You've had enough of it, particularly after this year. But you know, as I said, here's me still doing my doctorate in my late 50s. It's never too late. You'll probably change your mind several times over the years. Careers did used to be for life. You used to start a career and stay in that career for good. I've actually changed my job every 3 to 5 years as I've gone from one job to another. This is the longest I've stayed with any one organisation, 8 years. So I think I found my place now, just before I retire, kind of thing. Um, and also just picking back up on that, education can be embedded within a career now. So if you decide you want to work and you want to go out and work now and you find a great job opportunity, look at what apprenticeships are on offer as well. You know, so for me as a marketer, again, we now delivering a digital marketer apprenticeship. And so you might end up in an organisation where you can talk to them about the opportunity to study as well and to upskill yourself, because that's beneficial to your employer too. Um, I think, have I finished? I think that's everything. I've done my career tips. So that's my email address. I'm very, very happy for anybody to contact me if they want to chat about anything that they're considering. I'm sure you get loads of support from the college, but sometimes it's just nice to talk to somebody else. And I'm only, you know, I'm only over the way once we're back in college and university. So if anybody wants to meet up and talk something through, very happy to do that. And really, any questions from you now? Because that's me finished.